Hi everyone. Next up is connective tissue. And connective tissue is varied, but it follows form, follows function. So we're going to study the functions first and then figure out the forms so that you can reverse engineer it when you see a slide. You can look at the form on the slide and then reverse engineer back to function. You should be prepared to be able to see a set of slides of epithelial tissue, of connective tissue, of muscular tissue, of nervous tissue, and be able to identify what cells are in that tissue and the apical surface of the epithelial tissues and the basal surfaces and so forth. So we're getting you there by teaching you about the functions of each type of tissue first, and then going to the forms of those tissue. When it comes to connective tissue, this is the most widely dispersed tissue in most animal bodies, and it's very abundant. Its functions are, that's what it says, it connects, and different types of connective tissue connect organs to organs, bones to bones, bones to muscles, organs to tissues. This is a connective tissue. It holds organs in place. It protects organs in doing that. It supports and insulates and cushions organs so that this tissue is all over the body for that purpose. It also can repair other tissues, and it can move as in blood because blood connects all the tissues of the body. So connective tissue, very important, very diverse. Let's get into it. When we look at all of those functions, we can move them into forms. And if you think about a connecting tissue, it would have to connect via a network. And this is a network of fibers in connective tissue. And if it protects, well, it's going to need to be protecting by a number of layers. And think about protective layers over you if you're a soldier or if you're a cell. And if it supports, it's going to need some networks and relationships within those networks. So think about this as being a network connective tissue. You can go down the line there and look into some of the other ways that form follows function. Go back to our wolf. In this area, connective tissue acts to hold and connect many tissues and organs and bones and ligaments in place. So if you look at the leg of this wolf, he's got muscles there in his leg, he's got bones in his leg, and he's got skin, which is the largest organ in an animal body. All connective tissue is comprised of two forms. And those forms involve different types of cells, yellow there, and different types of extracellular matrix. We're going to get into that now. So as I described, cell types are very important to the general structure of connective tissue and the extracellular matrix. We'll go into the components of that matrix in a second. Let's go over the cell types. Cell types that are unique to connective tissue include many immunologically based cells. Here they're highlighted. Things like macrophages, lymphocytes, mast cells, and neutrophils. Go over macrophages first. These are very large cells, as in macro. Phage is a word from Greek meaning to eat, as in phagic, not eating. Macrophages are fixed immunological cells that stay within that tissue and don't move very much. They scout out for bacteria that they need to digest, and also suicidal cells in connective tissue that they're around. Suicidal cells have a programmed death date, and when they die, they need to be digested. Macrophages can do that, and in doing so, they are cleaning up the area as well as providing an immunological service and cleaning out bacteria. Lymphocytes are white blood cells that wander with the blood. They're in here, and lymphocytes can bind to invaders to let other white blood cell types know exactly where to target. Mast cells are other fixed immunological cells within connective tissue. Mast cells release histamine upon being triggered by an invader, and that histamine results in inflammation, so that mast cells can produce inflammation due to injury or an invader, a bacterial invader. They're multi-purpose for inflammation. Neutrophils, which are right here, are also wandering white blood cell types. They're called in for an invader. So they might be called in by a lymphocyte. So you see here that some of these cell types that are unique to connective tissue are often immunologically based. When we talk about other cell types that are unique to connective tissue, we might see other suffixes which clue us in to the function of those cells. And some of those suffixes might include blast or site or clast. Let's go over what that is. Right here you see a fibroblast. That suffix there of blast tells us that from the Greek is creating, like blasting off, creating a new mission. That fibroblast is creating fibrous tissue within connective tissue. And if we had a fibrocyte in this graphic, that suffix of site would mean maintaining, like in a cycle that goes on and on. You'd be maintaining fibrous tissue within the connective tissue by supplying it with nutrients, by taking out its waste, by making sure that it can function well. That would be a fibrocyte. If we had a fibroclast in this graphic, that would be a cell that is great at remodeling, kind of like a contractor coming in to remodel a kitchen. The fibroclast can come in and rework a fiber within the connective tissue, so that it can rework it to provide in some additional structure or to change its model. That would be a fibroclast. These cells are specific to connective tissue. When we look at the extracellular matrix, which is unique to connective tissue, we are talking about a substance that is non-living. And it's also often abbreviated ECM for extracellular matrix. And the name describes a lot of what that is. It is outside the cell, it is non-living, and it is a matrix which provides a medium to support the cells in the connective tissue. In fact, its structure is that it provides strength to the connective tissue with its fibers, and it provides support to the organs that are being supported by the connective tissue through the ground substance, which is part of the extracellular matrix. So the extracellular matrix is made up of fibers, and it's made up of ground substances. We're going to talk in depth about each of these fibers, and we're going to talk in depth about the nature of the ground substance. The fibers give strength to the extracellular matrix. These ground substances give support to the cells within the extracellular matrix. The ground substance of the extracellular matrix is literally a homogeneous or mixed up slurry. It can be anything from a liquid to a gel-like consistency, even to a solid consistency. We can classify connective tissue just on the consistency of the ground substance. We'll look into that a little bit more. And the fibers do lend strength. When we talk about the fibers, we can talk about collagen fibers, elastic fibers, and reticular fibers. Let's talk about collagen first. The function of collagen fibers, which are these grayish white fibers that are thick in here like ropes, the function of these is to connect, as in connective tissue, connect muscles to bones, and those are tendons that connect muscles to bones. They're made up of collagen fibers. A memory cue for this is to think about the fact that 10 muscles on Don's Achilles tendon are the tendons that connect muscles to bones. I always get confused between ligaments and tendons. This is my way to remember it. 10 muscles on Don's Achilles tendon connect muscles to bone. That's not true, by the way, but it's the way that I remember it. The way that I remember that collagen fibers connect bone to bone in ligaments is I remember the cue that the fibula and the tibula lie next to each other with ligaments. So that is true, by the way, that collagen fibers connect bone to bone with ligaments, and the tibula and fibula do lie next to each other, and they have a ligament between them. These collagen fibers in connective tissue resist being pulled apart, which is great if you're connecting a muscle to a bone or a bone to a bone. They're extremely sturdy and they are flexible. Their form, which follows their function, is that they are a thick connective fiber, like a rope. And they are made, of course, of collagen protein. They are avascular. So with the wear and tear that they get, they don't bleed. And they can be seen as a result as being grayish or whitish. When it comes to elastic fibers in connective tissue, those elastic fibers tend to connect organs. They're not as strong as the collagen fibers, these elastic fibers, but they can certainly support organs, and they can stretch and recoil in many different directions. They lend movement to organs like skin, which is your biggest organ, and things like a bladder, which stretches quite a bit. These are singular, strong fibers that make a network that you're seeing here. They're made of elastin protein. They tend to be yellowish or yellow-orange. When it comes to reticular fibers in connective proteins, these connect to other tissue types. These are the blue ones you see here. They're not as thick, and they're not connecting heavy materials. They're connecting tissues. They can frame light organs to provide a kind of skeleton to things that are light, like lymph nodes or the spleen. They can frame parts of heavier organs, like parts of the liver and the marrow within bone. They can frame some light tissues like nervous tissue and lighter muscles. The form that follows this function is delicately branched networks of these blue fibers. They are made up of collagen protein that is collagen in much thinner networks. They're blue in this graphic. We are going to look at the types of connective tissue that we can see, very diverse, and we are going to classify them on the basis of the cells that they have within their connective tissue, also the fibers that they use, and the consistency of the ground substance. That's on the next video.